Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from around the world, talking with makers from around the world. Here's Jamie Page, Steve Twidell, Chris Cute, and now your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Just kind of go on for a little while to a podcast 65 million years in the making. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you're listening. Joined me as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
How you doing?
Mr. Jamie Page.
Hello.
And he's going to be our dinosaur this week. It's Steve Twidell.
Hello.
How is everyone?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Because we do have a very awesome guest. I met him at Makers Central this year. I nearly said last year, but it was actually this year. I think we were all there, all 4 or 5 of us. I can't count. But Mark Christopher, how are you?
I am living the dream, my friend.
That's a very positive answer. I think that's got to be the most positive answer we've had on ever. So
I'm on your podcast. I'm trying to remain positive.
just being in a daydream will probably get you through the next hour or so. So bear with us. With that in mind, I will be back with you in just a few seconds, just so we can. You've probably never listened to the podcast, and I wouldn't hold it against you if that is the case. So we just do a few things to start with. So I'll be back with you in just a second, Chris. So very quickly, as always, this week's shout outs and thank yous go to Kemi's Garage, Harnell Media, Jim Dockrell, Billy Burt, Andrew McQuillan, and then over on Instagram / the social medias, Curious Maker Dan. And was there someone else, Jamie, that I've missed off, or was it?
There was Charlie / Delta 29, and there was Curious Maker Dan. Yeah.
So it was just the one person. Yeah.
No, there was 2.
But I said Curious Maker Dan, so 2 minus 1 leaves 1, so I missed 1.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Simple.
You timed me out on your stream. You deserve to be punished.
I don't time you out on here if I work out how to do it. Right, so we do like it when people get in touch with us, because basically we get to actually have a grown-up conversation with you when you interact with us, other than just squabbling amongst ourselves, as generally happens. So please talk to us, then we don't have to talk to each other. That's
that's always a plus. Trust me.
So very, very quickly, as always, our sponsors for the show. Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grip, Wood Turns Brace of Paste. Our good friend Chad over at Man Crafting, who is still giving away one of his Man Crafting mugs to a lucky listener every month. And also Pam over at Highland Boxes, who is giving away, I believe, one of her freaking awesome, I have to say, pen blanks, and they're seriously cool. So if you want to find out more about our sponsors, and I would recommend that you do, because all our sponsors are awesome, that's why we have them, please visit our website, makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, and there is all the information pertaining to our supporters and our sponsors over on there. Chris, do we have any random listener questions?
We do, but not from me. I believe Jamie has one this week. Jamie, you got one?
Yes, I've got the random listener questioner today, and it actually came about today, and it came about from Mr. Twidell's live stream. It kind of started off as a question, then turned into a bit of a dispute. But the question goes out: Is a saw a wood turning tool?
If you use it when it's on the lathe, I say it is.
So what do you guys say?
Well, that's my answer. If there's a piece of wood on the lathe and you're using a saw on the wood on the lathe, then it's a wood turning tool.
I would say it's actually a vital wood turning tool, because you can't part off completely with a parting tool, because if you're parting off the bottom of a bowl and the wood is wet, you can end up blowing out the bottom of a bowl. So it needs to be parted off with a saw.
Or you could, if you actually parted off a piece of wood on a lathe with a parting tool, and you've got that thing spinning, you could part with your nose or your face real easy too. So I'd say yes.
Yeah, I mean the argument you can have as well is a Jacob's chuck a tool for the lathe, and it is. It's a drill. It's a drill head, but you still use it on the lathe. So a saw, when you're using it on the lathe, becomes a lathe tool. So surely.
Mm-hmm. And a router as well. I know it pains me to say it, but they make jigs that accommodate a router.
I'm actually working on a jig to put a scroll saw on the lathe, and let's see how that works out.
Oh God,
Steve, I love you. Hashtag scroll turner.
Richard, you look a bit disgusted with us at the moment. What do you want to say?
Not really much to say. I was basically going to agree with Steve and say, if you're using the tool for a particular thing, then it becomes a tool for that particular thing if it does the job you want it to do. So, yeah. Who asked that question, Jamie? It was you, wasn't it? You made that up yourself, didn't you?
No, it was a kind of a mixture of everybody, really. But yeah, mainly Steve.
I asked on the reason why it came about was I was challenged to do a task on the lathe, and I could only use lathe tools. So when I took the saw out, I asked, "Is a saw a lathe tool?" And that's when the argument.
You're just overthinking it, aren't you?
Yes.
Overthinking it.
Well, Mark is a woodturner. Mark, what do you think?
You got to unmute yourself, Mark.
You're still muted, dude.
Unmute yourself. There you go.
I think if you use it on the lathe, yeah, it's a lathe tool. Whatever it is, it's like Jamie said. If you're trying to take off a turning with a wet turning, and you can blow that thing out. So yeah, if you can use it on the lathe, it's a lathe tool.
But is it
why people get hung up on it?
But is it a traditional tool?
Well, it must be because it's not made of carbide.
There you go.
How long has it been around?
Oh boy, we can go down this whole picky rabbit hole all day long if you guys want, but I think it's probably best if we move on and talk to Mark because, well, I don't want to divide this community any more than it already is.
No, divisions. That's what we like. You're not part of my team.
Nothing like a good debate.
What, debacle?
That was the end of that anyway.
Brilliant. Well, thank goodness for that. I'm really glad I asked, Jamie. Brilliant.
I'm glad you asked too.
I was being
about time we had a decent question.
Yeah.
Hey! Whoa! What did I do to you?
So, just in case you were wondering, Mark, this is pretty much it. We got you on for an hour, and we're just going to sit here and squabble amongst ourselves. For some reason, people seem to listen. They even might make chatty comments on the live chat, and people will download this rubbish and listen to it like in real life. And I have no idea why. It's like a huge social experiment.
Well, I always listen to the podcast when the saw is on. So,
oh, good. You get the better parts then.
Presumably, we'll edit all this junk out, but
no, we won't.
So let's actually right. There's an edit. Bam. Right, Mark. It's really great you be on the show tonight. Fantastic. Seriously, as I said before, we met for the first time at Makers Central, and I think we were chatting very briefly before we went on air. Are we right in saying that you are planning to come 2019 as well? Is that right?
The hotel room is already booked. Yes, I'll be there.
Fantastic. Presumably, you're back in the same hotel. Whose name is?
Yeah, the Birmingham Metropole.
Wicked. Right. Well, that kind of kicks us off with a simple question. But because when we were chatting, you are sporting the red maple leaf on your turning smock right now. I won't ask because you're sitting down. I won't ask what else you're wearing because you actually specifically asked us not to. So you're.
So forgive me if I deviously just do anyway. Go ahead.
Oh, blast! There's another edit. When we were chatting, we kind of had like a fairly grown up, I think is probably the right word, conversation about like Canadian politics and the French Quarter and and all this kind of stuff. So where am I right in saying that you are in Nova Scotia in Canada? Is that right?
Yeah, I live in Enfield, Nova Scotia, just outside Halifax, but I'm originally from St. John's, Newfoundland, which is Britain's oldest colony and the start of the British Empire.
I was going to say that when we were kind of chatting before and Jamie was scrolling through a load of pictures, I'm pretty sure I saw the Newfoundland stag. Is that the one at Beaufort Hamel?
Yeah, at Beaumont Hamel. Yeah, it's a Newfoundland caribou.
Or we might actually have a conversation about about that after the show. We'll because that's kind of a bit of an interest of mine. So I'll bring it back to the current topic. You are currently in Nova Scotia, originally from Newfoundland, Canadian. You're a wood turner / scroll sawer, I understand.
Wood turner, scroll sawer, whirligig maker, whatever my wife tells me to make.
But do you know? I'm glad you brought.
I can relate to that.
I'm glad you brought up Gail, because one of the questions, well, partly the conversation route that I was hoping to take was you being one half of a kind of a maker couple. So what?
I make sawdust. Gail is the artist.
Right. Okay. And so just expand on that.
Well, it started. Well, I never had like any kind of formal woodworking experience. My dad wasn't into it. We didn't have shop class in high school, and I've been working with the airlines for almost 4 decades now. But so we moved around a lot, and it wasn't until we moved to Nova Scotia when we bought this house. And my wife asked me. She said she wanted to get some of these mini railway ties to make a flower bed. And I said, right, okay, I guess I'm going to need a circular saw or something. So I ended up going to Walmart, and I spent $30 and bought a circular saw. And then I bought a jigsaw, and then I bought a drill, and I just started teaching myself. And then YouTube came along a few years later. And then I just started just doing a little bit more and more and more. And well, Chris has been in the shop, and it's, he can attest. I have a fair size investment down here now. And
yes, he does. And he's got a gorgeous shop. Or well, when I saw it, it had the potential to be a gorgeous shop. But Mark has done a lot of work since I was there, and it looks great, Mark.
It was if it wasn't for Chris, there'd be a lot less room in here, and it's certainly a lot more organized. But Gail actually is an artist, my wife, and very talented. And about 5 years ago, there was the International Whirligig Festival. It's held in Shelburne, Nova Scotia, every year. Actually, it was just this past weekend, and unfortunately, we couldn't go because I was working. So we went there, and we made a whirligig, and that was our first experience. And then the second year we went there, we brought 2 or 3 with us, and we walked off. Gail walked off with the best of show. I had the most creative. And we won, like, of the top 6 prizes, we won 4. It was kind of embarrassing, actually. But Gail comes up with a grand vision. And then it's up to me to try to animate said vision. And that was I'm not a particularly patient person. And the night before we went down to the festival, there was a lot of cussing in the shop. There was a lot of pieces of wood and tools and such that were tossed across the shop. But it turned out to be pretty productive time. I'm generally, like I said, not a patient person. But I know you're not going to want to hear this, Richard, but I find that the scroll saw is very relaxing for me, and it makes me slow down, and I really enjoy working on the scroll saw. So whenever Gail needs something, if she needs something, parts made for her different projects, she's just completed a series of fairy houses and bird houses and stuff that were quite ornate. So I'd make parts and stuff for her. So my favorite time there about a year ago, I was recovering from surgery, and I really wasn't allowed to do anything. And it took me probably about 6 weeks before I could even physically make it over the stairs to come down here to the shop. And some of the best times that Gail and I have had, I was just sitting there piddling at something on the bench there, just something minor, and she was working away on her projects, and I'd show her how to do something, or she'd ask me how to do something. So now I've lost the bandsaw is now hers, the drill press is now hers. I have no idea where the random orbit sander is because I think she's squirreled that away. It's probably under the bed somewhere, so somewhere where I can't get it because she's claimed that. And she's slowly just taking over different things in the shop. And to me, it's the best feeling in the world. I'd love to, I love being down here with her and spending time down here, especially in the winter. I mean, it's, you know, you get a miserable day outside. We put the fire in the fireplace there, and we can spend, you know, 8, 10, 12 hours down here, and to the point where we forget to have dinner, you know, and we'll come upstairs, you know, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and we'll look at each other and say, did we eat today? You know, because we just never bothered because we were having so much fun down here. So, you know, it's quite enjoyable having Gail down here with me, and she's a source of inspiration for me. And I wish I had half of her talent. I can't draw a straight line to save my life. I can follow plans somewhat, but it's kind of, it gets interesting when you have someone who's very artistic, and I find that it's the way she works. Gail can work in chaos. I can't. I need to have I need to kind of clear the decks, clear the tools, reset everything, and then I'll go at something. And Gail can have about 10 things on the go in her head, and bits and bobs all over the place. And you know, I can't find anything. And I ask her, and she said, "Where is it?" And she'll just reach. Oh, it's right there. Sure enough, that's where it is. And I just continue to marvel at my wife's ability to operate like that.
You know,
So,
speaking of Gail, I want to. Am I echoing?
a little bit. You're kind of like Martha and the Muffins.
Wow, I don't know why. Okay, I'll try to do this. So speaking of Gail, and speaking of next year, you've already said you're going to Maker Central, right, next year?
That's correct.
All right, well, I'm going to give those guys a plug real quick because Maker Central, by the way, guys, if you haven't booked your tickets yet, please do so now. It's at the NEC in Birmingham, the 11th and 12th of May, I believe. And the tickets are on sale for that now. And if you want to be a presenter and have a stand there, you can go ahead and book that now with Nick Zametti. And the website is, Jamie, what's the website's name again?
Makersinternationalpodcast.com.
It's Makers Central.
Makercentral.co.uk.
Wow, it is not. I knew I asked the wrong person.
It's makercentral.co.uk.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, it is. Why did I do that? Anyway, is Gail coming with you? Because I mean, the way you describe her, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to meet her. Is she going to be at Maker Central with you, or is she going to England with you?
She's going to come across the pond with me. Right now, she's saying that she's going to stay with our friend Sandra in London while I go to Birmingham. But I'm hoping to convince her to come up.
That would be awesome because I know Gail, and I was Mark and Gail were kind enough to let me stay at their house when last year prior to going to Maker Central, and that's why I kind of wanted to know because she had a lot of questions for us when we got back. That's why I was kind of hoping she would come.
Most of the questions is why hasn't Mark got any clothes on?
Or why did you come back?
She was with me. First of all, Steve, I love the background picture.
Thanks.
Yeah, Gail was with me in Kansas City during that particular incident, so she's well aware of my my shortcomings.
Well, you mentioned an incident. I think we would be remiss if we didn't let people know about the incident you speak of, because I believe that was Kansas City for Woodworking in America. Am I incorrect?
3 years ago, Woodworking in America. It's funny because I figured that was going to be preceded by the usual question from Jamie.
Well, then I'll let Jamie ask it. Go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I actually set it up so somebody else can ask it this time for a change. I might get being accused of being a pervert or something.
Oh, no, we already know that about you. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I was going to say again, Jamie.
Right, okay then. Right, Chris. Right, Chris. You're known for taking your clothes off. Right, Mark. Right, Mark. You're known for taking your clothes off. What is this about Kansas City?
Kansas City, after a long night in the lobby with Oh God, Sterling Davis was there. Nick Ferry was there. Ted Alexander was there. We had ice cream and beer presented to us by the management, who were convinced that we were airline pilots on a convention. We drank until probably 6 in the morning. They gave us the free stuff at 3. We drank till about 6 in the morning in the lobby of the Sheraton Kansas City at Crown Center. And after I had a short nap, I came back downstairs from the 23rd floor, had a lovely elevator ride down with a lady in her 70s, I guess. I strolled across the lobby. There was a group of women there on an L-shaped sectional Chesterfield, and I just kind of nodded good morning to them, and I went over and I got my coffee, and I saw one of my buddies, Corey, was there across the lobby, and I shouted out just loud enough for people to turn their heads and say, "Where's that voice coming from?" And I strolled across the lobby to the business center, and we sat down. We were printing out our boarding cards and having our morning coffee. And then at one point, I just kind of looked down. I looked at Corey and I said, "I'm not wearing pants." He had this look on his face of, "What?" And he looks down, and with that, he just about fell off the bar stool. And at this point now, I'm about as far away as you can possibly be in the lobby from the elevator bank. So I had nowhere to hide. Have you ever had that dream you're naked or you're in your underwear in public?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, lived it. So I had no choice. I had to strut my butt right across the lobby again, and there's no sense hiding it. So I just strutted across the lobby, and the group of women were still sitting there and having their morning meeting or whatever they were doing. I looked at them and I smiled and I nodded. I go into the elevator. I go back upstairs. Gail was in the room, and I opened the door and walked in, and there's me just standing there, shirt and underwear and a pair of shoes. And she just kind of keeled over laughing. And I just went over and I grabbed a pair of pants, put them on, went back down in the elevator, go outside for a cigarette because my nerves were shot at that point. And as I got off the elevator, one of the ladies just happened to be looking in the general direction of the elevator. And obviously she said something to the rest of them, because out of the corner of my eye, I could see 11 more heads all kind of turn to look in my direction. And then I strolled out of the lobby, out the front door, and I could just imagine them say, "Oh, look, he's wearing pants." It's a Canadian thing. So that's the Kansas City incident. So anybody who was there knows the answer to the inevitable question: boxers or briefs.
Yeah, you know where you went wrong there is that you actually, you went away from the drinking. If you followed the same book as myself and Heath Knuckles, you just don't go to bed. You just keep drinking, and you won't make that mistake of taking your clothes off.
However,
I think there's people in Atlanta at the show there that might beg to differ.
Yeah. However,
out of respect for the Commonwealth, I did manage to keep them on in England this time.
You did. You behaved yourself there.
But however, for the people that weren't in Kansas City, boxers or briefs?
Now or then?
Both.
Don't make me stand up.
Oh no!
No.
Do it.
No.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
No. This is a podcast. People can't see. Right?
Chris, play the public service announcement.
Yeah, really. I don't have it. I don't have it handy. But remember, you're watching this of your own free will. It's okay.
Don't worry, we got a pre-recorded message from Mr. Andy Berkey.
Yes,
and play.
Yeah, we should give that to Steve so he can play it when we need it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I could do that.
But Mark, I don't mean to continue down this line of talk, but I'm going to anyway, because that wasn't the only incident at a woodworking show where you lost clothing. There was, if I remember right, was it Atlanta 2016? Yeah, I believe it was Atlanta 2016. There was a show back then. Some of you guys may remember the Maritime Maker Show. And I think myself and I was on with, with Jason and Matt, and I think I was sitting next to Izzy and Sterling Davis, and in the background, all of a sudden, a certain individual starts to do a striptease. And starts making love to, if I remember right, a concrete pole.
There definitely was a poll there. Yes. I have sought help for that.
Needless to say, Mark, we love your sense of humor. And if anybody wants to see that, I believe that is on the Maritime Makers channel. If you want to go watch.
I'm not up for a Supreme Court position, so nobody needs to go look for that sort of thing.
All right, Richard, it's time for you to grab the reins, my friend. Please do something with this, because if you don't, you know where it's going.
For the love of God, man, just put this back on the rails.
You got to unmute yourself.
Yeah, well, my mic was muted from the mic. That's why you can see the little symbol. I'm going to try desperately to bring this back to normality, but after what's been discussed, I think I'm really going to struggle, if I'm perfectly honest. Mark, you briefly in your story were telling us about how you were. Was it you pretending to be airline pilots or something along those lines?
Yeah.
You're not a pilot, but you do actually work. Is it Air Canada or one of the Canadian airlines?
Yeah, Air Canada Express. I'm a flight dispatcher. I actually started out as a pilot when I was 16, and I did that. I ended up losing my medical, and so then I moved into the operations world. I spent 10 years with Civil Air Search and Rescue, and I've been a flight dispatcher now for 25 years. I'm coming up on my 37th or 38th year in aviation.
Wow, that's a long time. So what made you go into, piloting at 16? What were you flying?
Well, it's funny because Dad worked for the U.S. Air Force. Mom worked for Trans-Canada Airlines, which was the former name of Air Canada. So I never really had a chance. I grew up with airplanes. Been fascinated with them. They're my hobby. They're my passion. It was just one of those things that I was always around and just kind of fell into. And I'm very lucky in the sense that I don't have to. I've never had to go to work a day in my life because I truly love what I do.
That's definitely a big help. So you started off. When you were 16, was that like a small light aircraft?
Yeah, I started by flying lessons. Then I'd done gliders with the Air Cadets, and then I moved into powered aviation. And then I had actually lost my medical fairly early on. And then I ended up with search and rescue as a navigator and a spotter. I spent 10 years with them, doing other things as well. And then I moved into the operations side of the airline game. And so now I'm a flight dispatcher. So that involves actually formulating the flight plan, calculating the fuel, looking at the weather, checking en route navigation aids, coordinating with air traffic control, and issuing a flight plan. And then monitoring the flight as it's going along for any potential problems or weather problems or air traffic control delays and stuff. And it's never the same shift twice. There's days that you can go in there and you got your feet up and everything is just kind of sailing along smoothly. And there's other days that you don't have time to go to the bathroom.
One of those jobs, so like you say, every day is different. You never know what you're going to be going into. But presumably, though, that's a fairly simple job in terms of what you do. Flight plans. Canada's huge, so fuel, fill it up. Weather, snow.
Well, it's not quite that simple, I don't think.
No, it's a pretty complex, intricate job.
Sure. I don't know a huge amount about air traffic. My eldest brother is actually an air traffic controller in the RAF, and I'm always ribbing him for real simple jobs and things like that. So I just thought,
easy peasy.
Why should you be any different?
Canada's big, so go ahead and fill it up. Yeah, I don't think things work that way. Mark, what is and doing what you do? What would you think is your biggest challenge? Does the weather present the biggest challenge for you, or I would assume because weather patterns and things of that nature, storms, and because the changes so much, that would be number one why your job changes every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Weather is the number one issue, and then you could go from, I could be planning a departure from Calgary in Alberta in the middle of a snowstorm to arriving in Houston in the middle of thunderstorms, and then everything en route. So yeah, weather is definitely the number one thing. That's weather knowledge and knowledge of how weather moves and affects us, upper winds. That's our stock and trade as a dispatcher.
Got it. Yeah, that can't be easy. I mean, because I've seen the weathermen on TV, and they're seldom correct. So I mean, you guys have to be pretty spot on to get these airlines around some of these storms.
Well, when you plan, a flight is planned about 90 minutes prior to departure, and a lot can happen in 90 minutes if you've got a lot of weather things happening. And it's a matter of trying to stay ahead of the flight. Like if you will go from Calgary to Houston, it's about a 3.5 hour flight. Before you get to Denver, everything can change, and then you have to come up with a new flight plan en route and communicate that to the crew, and just to keep them safe, give the passengers a smooth ride. And it's a very mentally taxing job, we'll say, and which is why, much to Richard's chagrin, I find the scroll saw kind of relaxing, but you will appreciate it. It's almost mind numbing, Richard. So
I could appreciate how scroll sawing is. Yeah, I've completely got that one. And actually, in all seriousness, that was what I was going to say, because your kind of day job, you've got a lot of responsibility. You've got a lot of kind of potential for change in an instant. One second you're going that direction, and then all of a sudden everything spins around, something happens, and you're doing something totally different in a different, having to react to things potentially. And with that in mind, like you're saying, it's a very mentally taxing job, and sometimes it can be full on or nothing. Was that the reason why you kind of got into turning scroll sawing making as a release, or?
Well, it's certainly become more of a release. I'm not sure if that's the reason why I got into it. I mostly got into it because Gail asked to have something made. And then I was like, I kind of approach various projects with the same attitude. How hard could this possibly be? Well, I usually manage to find out exactly how hard it could be, and because nothing ever goes according to plan for me. But I find now, like I just finished 4 days, 4 12-hour shifts. So now I've got 4 days off, and I've been down here in the shop most of the afternoon here. I've managed to plane 2 boards and dump the bag from the dust collector. That was it. Other than that, I was just kind of piddling around here in the shop. But to me, this is just such a wonderful place to come just to mentally unwind. Because like I said, there's days that I can leave work and I walk out of the building and I literally have no memory of where the hell I parked my car. And to be able to come home here, and even if I just sit here and put on a podcast, even yours,
thanks.
Yeah. On a slow week, obviously.
Yeah, on a slow. And what's really funny is that because there are other podcasts which, out of deference to you, I will not name.
No, go ahead. We love all the podcasts. Mark, go ahead.
I will not. I absolutely refuse to listen to a podcast, a woodworking podcast, outside of the shop. I won't listen to it upstairs. I won't listen to it in the car, anywhere. I have to be down in the shop because I find it a great source of inspiration, I guess, and camaraderie is a huge thing, because until 10 years ago, YouTube wasn't here, and Google Hangouts were still a few years away. And for the most part, and I think most people can relate that as a woodworker or any kind of a maker in general, it's kind of a solitary existence. And then now you have this community, and that's the time and time again. Everybody I've ever spoken to, it's not, when Chris and I were talking about it when we were on the way back from England. It's not about the stuff that we saw, or the tools, or the the projects, or the ice sculptures, or Batman cars, anything like it. It's all about the people. And to me, that was the biggest thing. And one of the things that, and speaking of that, when I was there, I got to meet Martin Saban Smith, who most of you guys know from the Black Dog Workshop. A couple of years ago, I went through a pretty bad bout of depression, and nothing in particular triggered it. It just kind of came over me like a pall, and I referred to it as the Black Dog then, not realizing that came from Churchill and not realizing that Martin had his shop for the same reason. And I got to meet him and thank him, because when I was going through that, I discovered Martin's videos and the background of why he started the Black Dog Workshop. And he, all of a sudden, after a fairly long time in a state of depression, I came out of it. Sorry, it's my cat. And I actually got to meet him in person, and he had no idea who I was, but I thanked him for helping me. And it's all about the people in this community that are so giving and so loving and so supportive, that we've all had days, it's like, you come down in the shop, you could have lots of ideas to come down. You come down or you go out in your shop and you can't do a damn thing. You put on a podcast, or all of a sudden somebody has a link to a hangout, and and all of a sudden your mood completely changes. We had Matt Brander and Jason McGinn were visiting me from New Brunswick in my shop, and we were on a hangout with Peter Freitag from Thank God It's Friday Workshop in Germany, and Russ from Florida. God, I can't remember his name. But anyway, we were having a problem with a bandsaw that I had here, and Russ managed to find the original schematic for it, and Peter was ex-technical services in the German Luftwaffe, and he was able to interpret what we needed to do, and we fixed the bandsaw. And to me, I said, hang on, let me get this straight. There's a fella from Newfoundland who moves to Nova Scotia, invites two friends from New Brunswick to come visit him, and along with a guy in Germany and a guy in Florida, we managed to fix the bandsaw. And I thought to myself, like, how brilliant is this? Because, years ago, you might be able to send a question into Wood Magazine or something. If they ever chose it, you might see an answer in 6 months. And here we were in the space of half an hour. So it's all about the community, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll totally back that up. I mean, you could almost take the hall with the Batman car and all the stands and all the things to see in that room completely out of the equation, and just put everybody in the hotel and just got them all together 1, 2, 3 evenings just to chat. Because that, for me, and probably for Steve as well, because he's already said he was in the bar all the time, was where that that camaraderie really came to the fore for myself. I mean, that's literally where I met you. I sat in the bar on the Friday night before the show even started.
Stephen Heath is still trying to sober up from Makers Central.
No, I have to correct you there. Heath is still trying to sober up from that session. I had no problems.
You have no intention of sobering up. He's just going to stay drunk.
Somewhere Steve's got some blood in his Guinness.
Oh.
I have video evidence that I can use whenever I need it.
We could probably go on and on and on about Maker Central and how awesome that event was, and I'm really looking forward to next year. But I got to tell you, I'm 100% agreement with you, Mark. I mean, Mark and I, in case you don't know, Mark and I actually flew together to London and stayed in the same hotel. I mean, we were in Birmingham together. Man, Mark, I think and this coming year, I'm flying straight into Birmingham. I'm not gonna do that flight that we did, because man, Mark, I think I might have walked close to 5 miles just trying to get from point A to point B, and then to get on a train. And Mark can attest to this. We got to the train station in London that was going to take us up to Birmingham, and I was so tired and wanted to relax so much. I went, Mark, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm buying a first-class ticket on this train, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm not doing coach after the day we just had. So yeah, we did, and so Mark and I, we both sat in first class on what was it? Was it the what was it? The Atlantic? What was it? The train that we rode up on?
We went up on Virgin.
Virgin Atlantic. Okay, yeah, we took the Virgin.
Now, if you was an English person, you would have got a normal seat and just gone and sat in first class.
Oh, don't be doing that. Don't be doing that.
Well, there's actually a question I want to ask Mark. Now, people might have seen advertised when we advertise a podcast that he's got a nickname Jurassic. Now, I just want to ask Mark how he actually came about getting that name.
That actually came from a young whippersnapper at work by the name of Mark Cross, who's another Newfoundlander. And Mark had relieved me. I got off shift, and he was. He was my relief. Get out of the gutter, Jamie. It's crowded down here. Anyway, the pilot had called in or something with a question about his flight plan, and it was somebody that I knew, and he thought that's who he was talking to. And he said, "Oh no," he said, "This that's ancient Mark you're looking for. This is young, bright, vibrant Mark." So that's how he billed himself. So he just started calling me Ancient Mark, and then at some point, there was something had come up about dinosaurs in the office, and or they were talking about oil, and said, "Well, that used to be Mark's playground, the oil fields." So that's how it just kind of morphed into Jurassic Mark. Yeah, thanks for moving out of the way to show that picture again, there, Steve.
No problem.
and then of course Jamie Page decided, that he was going to have some fun with it. And for those that can't see it, that are listening on the podcast, if you're familiar with the Jurassic Park logo, he's turned it into Jurassic Mark Woodshop, and a little T-Rex there with my face stuck on it, with a little tiny hammer and a little tiny saw in his little tiny hands. So it just became Jurassic, and I'm apparently older than dirt, and I was around when the Earth was cooling. So that's where it came from. So there's no sense fighting it, because they'll just tease me more. So I just own it.
So yeah, Mark used to swim in the La Brea tar pits. That's just where that's.
There you go.
Wear it like a badge of honor, Mark.
Can't run from it. Might as well own it.
You've been a part of this community almost from the get-go. I mean, when I think back on when I first saw one of your videos, I mean, Mark, you've been around for a while. How long have you been around as far as making yourself a public presence in the community?
I don't know. I guess 5 or 6 years. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of content out there. I have grand visions. I just can't seem to manage to pull them off in anything vaguely looking like a reasonable timeline. I do have a list of projects that I am definitely getting done now, that thanks to your help, Chris, that I was able to get the shop in a functional state, and so there'll be a lot more content coming out on the channel. And I never really figured out Instagram all that well. I am on Instagram. I do post some pictures of up there every once in a while, and they seem to attract attention. So I don't know, maybe I'll do a little bit more on that. But there's a bunch of videos that'll be coming down the pipe. I've got several that are partially done in the can. They just need to be finished up and edited
and put out there for us to see. Don't keep them, you snob. You're selfish. Put them out there. We want to watch. We want to see. And Steve, I mean, this may give you a lot of questions, because Mark is also a wood turner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Steve, you got any questions for Mark regarding his lathe work? Because Mark has done, and I don't mind telling you, some pretty impressive things.
Yeah. Just in your bio on YouTube, you say that you're more of a pen turner, but you do a hell of a lot more than pens, don't you?
I've gotten into some. I'm looking at it there now. A whole slew of blanks there now, and different bowl blanks and stuff that I've got roughed out there. Something that I want to get more into. I actually came into the pen making quite by accident. It was I had sent Gail on a course at Lee Valley for a bowl turning thing. It was an event for women seminar. And she was quite enthralled with it. So I went out and I purchased a rather large lathe for her to use, which she has never used. And then I had decided that I'd like to maybe try this. And I purchased an inexpensive one from Busy Bee Tools here in Canada. And so I was just kind of farting around with it, really. And I didn't really do much with it. And then a good friend of mine, Colin, is a Coast Guard helicopter pilot, and he was doing a cruise to the North Pole. And they have a fully equipped woodworking shop on board the ship. And he had said that there was they had a lathe, and he wanted to try it because he was going to be gone for like 3 months. And he wasn't going to be doing a lot of flying, so he had a lot of downtime. So I went to pick up this beginner's wood turning kit from Busy Bee, and for him, because he was busy getting ready to go. And when I went there, he said, "Oh, we've only got 2 left." And I said, "Well, can you open it and just let me see it?" And it had a few bits and bobs in there and some couple of blanks and stuff. And I was, again, how hard can this be? So I said, "Well, I already got a lathe, so maybe I'll try this pen thing." And anyway, I got it home, and it gave him his. He went off on the cruise, and I started to teach myself how to make pens. And that was, I guess, leading into Christmas. They're about 4 years ago. And I sold enough pens that in the time leading up to Christmas in my office that I was able to go out and buy a brand new better lathe in the Boxing Day sale after Christmas. And then I just started turning more and more. So what Gail is kind of getting me into now, and I've kind of moved that way, is I do something called memory pens, because I've got all kinds of exotic wood blanks from South America and around the world and stuff. But to me, I love wood that has a story. Very good friend of mine at work, Janice, had gotten some lilac from her grandmother's tree in St. Anthony, Newfoundland. She was originally from England and had emigrated to Newfoundland in the 20s. And this tree she took with her as a young girl. And her nan has since passed long ago. And she got some wood from this tree and asked me to turn some pens for her children and for herself as a touchstone back to their grandmother and great-grandmother. And to anyone else looking at it, yeah, it's a nice looking pen. Lilac is beautiful to turn. But to them, it meant something. And to me, it's always the backstory of the wood. I've gotten wood from the Blue Nose 2, which is a famous Canadian sailing ship here. I've got some walnut from the largest Canadian icebreaker that I did for a former master of the vessel. And that to him was incredibly touching from what I was told, because he was the last master, or that was his last command before he retired after a 40-year career in the Coast Guard. So to him, it was a touchstone back to everyone that ever served on that ship at some point had their hand on that handrail. And to anyone else, yeah, it's a nice looking pen, no big deal. But to that one person, it meant the world. And to me, it's always about the backstory.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been commissioned to do bits and pieces with people will bring you a lump of wood and say, "Can you make me something?" And like that, it's not what you make, it's the story behind it. And that, I mean, I think there's a lot of wood turners prefer those sort of commissions and those sort of jobs compared to just knocking out hundreds of pens from any old wood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Mark, it's been great having you on. Is there anything that you would like to touch on that we haven't talked about yet? Because, I mean, if there's anything you want to put out there for people to know about you or what you're doing or look forward to, anything like that? That's no pressure, Mark, as far as, what we can look forward to. Seriously, what can we look forward to? Mark, what can we look forward to?
Me keeping my clothes on. Let's right now.
We'll start with the bear.
When's the video coming out, Mark?
I am actually, I'm hoping to work on it here this evening, actually. I'm hoping to finish the damn solar can. It's a passive pop can solar heater that I've been threatening to make for 3 years. That's almost done. So I'm going to try to get that finished and out very shortly.
Awesome.
I'm just trying to get back through the chat. The chat on this podcast just goes so quickly unless there's somebody constantly watching it. It's very easy to miss. So first of all, to everyone who is watching live, I do apologise if we've missed your comment. I'm just seeing the thing that's moving too fast for me to see, and I can't, as a result, see if there's any questions from the floor to Mark. So I think that almost kind of pretty much wraps up the show in terms of the body. I mean, Mark, you've talked about your channel very briefly. Like you said, you you haven't put much content out recently, but you're currently, I believe, working on the solar heater pop can thing currently as we speak. Do you watch a lot of YouTube, or?
I watch an obsessive amount of YouTube.
That's a good answer, because my next question is, who are you watching at the moment, and is there anyone that you particularly would like to kind of highlight, shout out to?
Well, you know what, and I think he's in the chat there, Heath Knuckles. I was showing my wife some of Heath's work. She is familiar with it, but there was a couple of pieces that he's done that she hadn't seen, and he has actually inspired her to move into some resin casting. And she's got, like I said, she's an artist, and her mind just goes a mile a minute, and so we're trying to do some stuff with that. So we both take a lot of good stuff from Heath.
Steve, Mr. Twidell. I mean, really?
Oh, it's not my fault. Jamie made me do it.
Jamie made me do it. At work, it's referred to as Marky Mark and the Funky Dispatch Bunch. Anyway, back to the rails. So yeah, Heath Knuckles, and actually Mike Walt. I love watching Mike stuff. We had a grand chat when I was over in England this year. I've always enjoyed his stuff. It's like a friend sitting down to have a conversation with, and he's not too shouty, as a certain beer was described in London that we saw that Chris had.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's sort of like what the Americans like, but just a little less shouty. So other people, that I watch. Nate from A Young Man's Workshop. I love his content. I've met Nate before. Though she doesn't have anything on YouTube, and you mentioned her a couple of weeks ago, Anna Briscala, Anna B, and I love her stuff on Instagram. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff, and there's actually, I for some reason I watch an inordinate amount of documentaries on the British rail system and the underground. I don't know why, I just kind of fell into that. So yeah.
Well, okay, guilty. I do the same, Mark. Honestly, probably we've watched the same videos. Anyway, well, awesome. Okay, so we got a few, and Heath Knuckles and your wife Gail. All right. Well, you should just go ahead and hand Gail your wallet now, okay? Because the resin is not cheap. So thank you, Heath, for making Mark poor.
Yeah.
What about anybody else? Anybody else got a shout out this week?
Yeah, I've got one. My shout out this week goes to a channel called Sam Thomas Twisted Crafts UK. He's a wood turner from the UK, hence Twisted Crafts UK. No, he does some really cool projects. He does it with resin as well as wood. He's got a little over 100 subscribers. So yeah, just head over to his channel and give the man some love. He does some pretty good work.
Awesome. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I got a shout out. I watched a video the other night from Jenny Swiss. It's a great channel, but the reason why this video kind of attracted me was it was different. Do you know, you've got the usual making stuff videos, but he went out to a hat making factory. I believe it's a friend of his, and he actually showed how to make a bowler hat, and he made himself a bowler hat, and it was an awesome video, really well put together, and it because it was so different, I just really enjoyed it. Fantastic videos. If you get a chance to go and see that, as Jenny Swiss, a hat maker and how to make a hat. It's a cool video, really is.
Yeah. Mark, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying I watched that this morning, and yeah, you're right. It's a brilliant video.
All right, I have to ask Steve, that picture behind you is that actually Jamie throwing a stick to Mark? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of Jamie's famous pictures.
I knew it was Mark's head, but Jamie, until Steve was talking, I didn't even realize that was your face throwing the stick. Did you guys have fun? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Boy and his pet dinosaur.
Richard, how about you?
Well, I started off with one shout out, but it's kind of morphed into sort of 2.5/3. I sent you the link already because Al over at Al's Hug Shack has just released
It's awesome.
the Tira video, the t-shirt cannon. Not only is it awesome video, but the actual t-shirt cannon is awesome, and we had a lot of fun playing around with that. Probably too much fun, actually. Whilst it was still very much a drain pipe that fired a t-shirt at the end of the kind of a prototype during the summer. So I've been looking forward to this and waiting with bated breath for this video to come out. It's finally here. It's quite a long one actually for Al. I think was it 18 minutes or so?
That's what she said.
That's a long time.
Good.
Whilst we were talking just before we went on air, I noticed over on Instagram, I think Red has brought out his full fly video as well. So that's just 2 videos straight off. So they're my shout outs. Have you done yours, Chris?
No, that's okay. That's fine. I mean, I can rock on with mine real quick. And I don't have a particular video on mine. It just occurred to me because this gentleman had released a couple of videos this week. That if you're a woodworker and you're not subscribed or you haven't watched James Hamilton's videos, you should go do so, because James puts out a lot of really good information. Stumping ups is who I'm talking about. And James, very intelligent gentleman when it comes to woodworking, but he makes everything sound so simple and easy, and he breaks it down for you. So if you're into woodworking and you haven't seen Stumping Ups' videos yet, go check out his channel, because I guarantee you somewhere in that library you're going to find something that's going to help you out in the future. So that would be my shout out, I guess, this week.
It always surprises me how little recognition James seems to get comparative to his obvious time investment and time he's been doing in it, and his skill and everything
and talent. Absolutely. And if you're not watching Stumping Ups, you should, especially if you're a woodworker, because what can I say that I didn't just say? If you want to learn something, go watch James.
Yeah, because there's a lot of content there as well. It's not just once in a blue moon.
No, he puts out a lot of stuff, a lot of information.
So yeah, wicked. That pretty much does wrap the show up, I believe. I noticed there were a huge amount of people in the chat. I've got a different screen up now, so I can't actually see. But I'm not even going to do it off the top of my head. But if you're still listening, thank you for listening. If you're not, we will say what we like about you, possibly after the show. If everyone's finished, I think, like I say, that pretty much wraps us up. So we can say toodaloo, cheerio, toodle pip, etc., and see you next week. Do we have a topic next week?
We have a guest next week, but I want to say thank you to my buddy Mark Christopher for showing up today. Mark, thanks for coming on with us.
Well, thanks for the invitation. I enjoyed it, guys.
All right, everybody, have a great week.
Catch you later.
See you, everyone.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Steve.
And I'm Steve.
I'm still here.